Good evening, Canby. We're going to open the council meeting for May 19th, 2021. I'm calling it to order. We have previously had a couple meetings. We had an urban renewal meeting earlier this evening, a work session and an executive session. So we're officially, I think, on meeting number 4 for the evening. Melissa, we have citizen input.
Yes, you have one person that's requested to speak.
Is that person on?
She is on. Her name is Barbara.
Oh, there she is. I see. Okay. Barbara and Pass. Okay. She is now unmuted. Go ahead, Barbara.
Mayor and City Council, I'm Barb Vandepass, resident of Canby. I'm addressing the City Administrator's directive to the library to not purchase or distribute the book page, a selection guide for newly published books. My husband and I have used that guide for years to decide which books we want to put on hold. It is especially valuable since we can't peruse the new bookshelves in the library during the pandemic. The freedom to read is essential to our democracy and guaranteed by the United States Constitution, according to the American Library Association. They created a freedom to read statement in 1956 that is upheld today. Here are 2 of the 7 propositions of which librarians are familiar. It is in the public interest for publishers and librarians to make available the widest diversity of views and expressions, including those that are unorthodox, unpopular, or considered dangerous by the majority. 2, it is the responsibility of publishers and librarians as guardians of the people's freedom to read to contest encroachments upon that freedom by individuals or groups seeking to impose their own standards or tastes upon the community at large, and by the government whenever it seeks to reduce or deny public access to public information. Since the book in question is about sexuality, I'll offer statistics from the Trevor Project, the leading national organization providing crisis intervention and suicide prevention services to lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, and queer youth. Suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death among young people ages 10 to 24. LBG youth are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide than heterosexual youth. LGB youth who come from highly rejecting families are 8 times as likely to have attempted suicide as LGB peers who have family and friends support system. Is the library a place where one can learn about other ways of being and interacting? A place to discover who might think or feel as you do? Is home a place where a teen or child can freely ask questions and get their parents' perspective, morals, and ways of being with others? Why is a publication banned when 1 book out of 109 newly published titles is offensive to a few? Personally, I've been pleased at the number of books recently published from people of color, learning about cultures around the world, other ways of interacting and relating with our mind, body, and spirit. I suggest as a solution that the book page be reinstated. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Do we have any other citizen input? Melissa?
You do not.
We do not, Council President Hensley.
Thank you. Can we mute Barbara?
Barbara is muted. Oh, no.
Thank you. I see that now. Thank you. All right, moving to the next item. Do we have any community announcements, Scott?
No, there are none.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have a presentation. It's an annual report from the Heritage and Landmark Commission. Looks like Judy's going to do this when she's unmuted.
Hello. Can
Hello,
you hear me
Judy.
okay? I asked, can you hear me okay? Because we're having a major hailstorm right now.
Come on. Yes, we all hear you.
Okay, good. So let's see. Let me share my screen. I can't share my screen yet.
She needs host privileges.
Melissa just did that for you. I'm going to turn on the backlight here.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. All right. You can all see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So May is National Heritage Month. Interestingly, National Heritage Month was started in 1973 by President Nixon. Who knew? And typically we use May to have different events that I guess highlight heritage in our area, but not so much this year. But I thought this might be a good time to present our annual report. And I thank you for your time this evening. Council members, appreciate it very much. So can you see my agenda slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. All right. So if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. I'm respectful of your time, but we have plenty of time to go through this. So talk a little bit about who we are and what we do and what we've been up to, and a request for you, and also anything you have for us. We, boy, I need to hide this, don't I? There. We have a lot of great folks on our Heritage and Landmark Commission, and I say we're folks that get things done. We have a great mix of background, and we do a lot of work, a lot of projects, and we've had feedback actually from other cities that say, how do you get these things done? They've asked us to share our annual report, and oftentimes you've probably experienced this. You have committees or commissions that do a lot of talking, but we do a lot of talking, but actually we also do a lot of doing. And so a real great mix of people, and our council liaison is Councilor Parker, who is a model for how to do that. Appreciate his active engagement in our meetings every month and gives us great information of what's happening in the city that we might find of interest, and also helps keep people aware of what we're doing. So Councilor Parker, thank you for that. We really appreciate your help with that, your support. Again, we have an interesting group. We have people that have subject expertise, of which I do not, by the way, and leadership skills. And so we have people with public history experience and practical knowledge and education. We are collaborators. We work with other cities. We work with the state. We work with other committees within Canby. Like right now, we're collaborating with the Bike and Ped Committee on their work on the Malala Forest Road, which is a heritage resource for our town. And we do a lot of support letters too. A lot of other groups who apply for grants. Grants often have to be accompanied by support letters, and we do a lot of that. We're also storytellers. We love to talk about the heritage of our town, so I would advise don't get us started. A lot of really interesting information that people have. People who've lived here a long time, or people who've really studied the history and know the history of our area. We spend a lot of time on grants. So we research grant availability. We do all the very detailed documentation for grants. We write the grant applications. And when the grants are approved, we manage the grant work, the projects. We augment the city. What the city staff does for us, Calvin Lesueur to be specific, is we hand the grants off to him and he enters them in the state system. And then he also does what we need to do to make sure that we have the right contracts with the vendors and the vendors get paid and things like that. So we're really sort of an appendage to the city to help bring grant money in and get those projects done. We've got some great history detectives in our group. Sometimes we'll get an odd message from someone that's just moved into a historic home and they want to know about it. And these folks know where to go. They know how to get the information and how to get it back to the people who have questions, or to publicize it. We try to do as much of that as possible as well. We're digitizers. Not really sure if that's a word, but I'll talk more about that later. But there's a lot of historic data, heritage data that's available in formats that are not really protected. There we have the county in particular, we have documents that have handwritten notes on them, and they need to be scanned and saved. We have information that you can't really research very well because it's in a format that can't be searched or it can't be sorted. So we spend interesting amount of time on this effort to make information available and protect it electronically. Preservationists, a couple folks on the commission live in historic homes that are on a register and also very much value and have a lot of, a lot of work around preserving heritage resources, which can be a dwelling, it could be a road, it could be a bridge, it could be a tree. So we have folks that are very much actively working on that. We are lucky, we've got project management expertise in our group. We have a certified project manager who's used to managing very large projects. And so not all our projects are really large, but they can be complicated because we have so many folks involved in them and so many things that are dependent on other activities. So we manage our projects very tightly. And we also take the time to do a reflections exercise at the end of our projects because many of our projects are repetitive every year. And so we learn from them and we become better at it. And then like all of us on this call tonight, we're all caring citizens. We're doing this from the heart. Okay, so this is a 10,000 foot view, if you will, of what we've got going on last year and this year. And then I'll deep dive into a couple of areas if I can. So first of all, last year we had our first published historic preservation plan. You should all have a copy of that. If you don't, please let me know. This provides the roadmap for what we should do about heritage in our community to preserve, to identify, preserve, and protect. And it lays out many, many activities that can take, many years to get through, but we are whittling away at that plan. And that's what drives most of our activity right now is just taking pieces of that plan that matter most and getting them done. And so what we do with that in the center of the slide there, that comes from grant funding from multiple sources. So for this coming year, we've got 2 grants that have been awarded. One is called a Certified Local Government Grant for $27,000. We'll talk more about that. And another one for the Zion Cemetery, and we'll talk more about that as well. And that again helps us progress this preservation plan that was delivered to us last year. So the first one is the Zion Memorial Cemetery, and we'll go into this in a little bit more detail, but each year we work on restoration and protection of the historic section of the cemetery, which has 1,700 plus burials in it. It's very large. And so last year, as we do every year, we had a section of markers repaired. And sometimes that means actually taking them elsewhere and having them professionally repaired or just righted or straightened out or something. But mostly just to preserve them. And then we have an annual event in September. And this last September, we cleaned 85 markers. There's a very specific way to do that. And then last year, we also had a bit of a side project where we updated over 1,700 historic burial records. So we'll talk more about that. And then also we have submitted the grant for this coming year's work to the state. The Certified Local Government Grant has an interesting background. Again, it comes from the state, and not all cities can get this grant. You have to have certain things in place in order to qualify for them. And Canby worked hard to do that a few years ago. One of the things, for instance, is we have to have a group like ours, some sort of historic review board or Heritage and Landmark Commission to even qualify for those grant dollars. And if you don't, you're not going to get the grant money. So fortunately, the city and the HLC in the past worked to make sure we qualify. So the monies that we're getting this year are used for a variety of things. One is to what they call surveying historic properties. So we are expanding our knowledge about which properties or roads or bridges or trees have potential for preservation. And that data then is typically recorded by the state. And we're expanding the use of expanding that survey this year, where we go out and we investigate specifically what's happening with those properties and what's the possibility for those properties. And then we're also doing another deep dive on the fairgrounds, the same thing, using consulting firm to help us update some really dated documentation about the history of that and the buildings and the current state of that and what the possibilities are for preserving that as well. And then in the middle in the gray, I just documented some of the project volunteer hours that are related only to grants. We don't track all of our volunteer time. We probably should. But we do have to track our time that we spend on the grants, and we have to provide that information to the state. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Then we have some non-grant activity. Maybe we're doing outreach and presentations. Maybe we can start that up again where we're talking to the Kiwanis or the Rotary or the VFW. But in addition to that, this year we're responsible for design review in certain cases of changes to historically registered dwellings or buildings. And so this year we have one coming up for our historic Holly Street City Hall. And then also behind the scenes, we're doing very in-depth, detailed research, and we'll write an application to see if we can get the depot on the National Register of Historic Places. So that's a top level view of what we got going on this year. Okay, let me deep dive, if I can, a little bit into the Certified Local Government Grant for this year. It's funded by the State Historic Preservation Office, or what we call SHPO. And it's in order for us to peel the...
Uh-oh.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. You cut out a little bit there.
Oh,
Last
sorry.
thing we heard was peel the.
Peel the onion. Oh, yeah, my internet connection's having a... Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, it's important to know what you have and then do a little bit of deep dive on what those resources are. And we don't have a lot of that information today. We have some, but we're expanding what that is. And they help us identify the things that are significant and potential for protection so that we can focus our limited time and money on preservation of those things. And so the activities we have going on this year to do that is, first of all, what's called a windshield survey, which is just two people in a car. And we're looking for volunteers to help with this, but to drive by this list of properties that we got from the county to see is it still there? Is it gone? Or was it, remodeled to from the outside only? Was it remodeled to a point that it doesn't meet any kind of historic value anymore? This doesn't take any specific experience or expertise. You just have to look at it and say, does it look historic or not? So we've got 150 properties to do. And that's peeling the onion, because then we'll hand off the results of that to a consulting firm. And that way we can whittle down the list. I don't know what we're going to end up with, 100, 120, 50, I don't know. And then from there, the Northwest Vernacular, who we've worked with before, Katie and Spencer, who are fabulous, they do another peeling of the onion. They do a very detailed, what they call a survey, documentation about those buildings to analyze in what with the data that the state requires to document for the state the current condition and potential of those properties. And we've worked with them in the past. I've worked with a lot of consultants in my career, and they are fabulous. And so there'll be some really interesting information that comes out of that. And then from that, I don't know that we'll do it this year, probably next year, but we will do an outreach program to the property owners so that we can help them know what they have and then what's available to them to preserve and protect. And then also part of this Certified Local Government Grant is the same sort of information about the fairgrounds on site, detailed review of history, the buildings, the age, the condition, anything that we might need for a potential in the future, potential putting that on a register, a historic register, so that that can be preserved and protected. But this is just the first peeling of the onion, if you will. Okay. Then the other big part of our grant work this year is for the Zion Memorial Cemetery. Each year we have a grant for this cemetery, and each year we have a couple of different projects. One is on the upper left, we have markers repaired, and that's Jeff Hiltz and his wife. This is what they do for a living. They do it throughout the state, and they use specific preservation methods to fix them if they're broken, or right them if they're crooked, or straighten them out or dig them up, or whatever they need to do to make sure that they're stable. And so we have just a subset that we do each year with Jeff Hiltz, based on the money that we receive from the state. Then we have an annual cleaning event where we take a subset of markers. Again, there's 1,700 plus burials in the historic section. So we take a small subset every year in September, and we have a cleaning event. And this event, it's interesting, the feedback that we get from people is they love this event. And it's really hard to explain the impact that you have when you are scrubbing a headstone and you're uncovering words that haven't been seen in decades, and what the person's background might be, or interesting information about the person. And I have people tell me how impactful that is to them. And I've had people tell me this last year that this was one of their favorite things to do every year, not because scrubbing headstones is necessarily fun, it's hard work, but because of the history that comes with it. Sometimes we have people from the Depot Museum with us that are explaining the history of the people we're looking at. It's really, really interesting. Or anyway, it's a great project that we do every year. And you can see the before and after picture. This one, if you look at it quick, it looks like it says Herman Lee, but it doesn't. It says Hayman Lee Hutchinson. There's another Hayman Lee in the cemetery, and I'm sure you all know that was Canby's first mayor, Hayman Lee. This is a different person. It's Hayman Lee Hutchinson, but hold that thought for a moment, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about that name in a minute. I also want to thank Mike Nagano and the grounds crew, the city grounds crew. It's very unusual for a city to own a cemetery, but the city takes amazing care of that cemetery. It looks beautiful. They help us tremendously in prepping for this event. They make sure that the section we're going to be working on that is prepped and beautiful and ready to go. They take great pride in their work, and it's really obvious. He's super great to work with. This is also funded by the Oregon Heritage Council. Okay, this is a sub-project that came out of our cemetery cleaning event. And it was unexpected, but has turned out to be an interesting thing. So when I was asked to lead this project, I was new to Canby. And when someone said, well, here's a project to get your feet wet, help us manage this little annual cleaning event and marker repair for the Zion Cemetery. And I said, well, where is that? I didn't even know. I thought it was a little pioneer cemetery. I didn't do my due diligence, so I didn't find out till later that it had 1,700 burials in it. Anyway, so the first thing I did is I went to the city website to look at the cemetery map, which you see on the left there. And our website says the old section is not mapped. Okay, so that's fine. And on the cemetery site, the website, there is a list of burials. It's a PDF format, so it's like a picture, an image. You can't really search on it. It's hard to do much with it. It's also pretty incomplete because it's old. And so I thought, well, maybe while we're scrubbing all these headstones and uncovering this information that you can't read, we can update this list. So I converted the PDF file to a spreadsheet and sorted it. And then what we started to do when we were having our cleaning event, people would write down the missing information. It's probably hard to see, but you can see a lot of handwriting in that piece of paper that says by location. That's a 36-page spreadsheet. So in the first year, we updated 3 pages of it. Then what happened is I say special thanks here to Rachel Swanson, who's a member of the HLC, and her young sons, Calvin and Jack. They took this on as a COVID project. And last year, when there was a nice day and they were stuck in the house, they were tired of not being able to get out, she took her young sons to the cemetery and walked the row by row. They completed all of this information update last year. I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. And so then we took that information and we updated that. And I'll talk more about that. But if you look at the bottom there, there's a big document that's hard to see. It's plotter paper size. 2 years ago, I got a call from the city. A citizen had moved into a home in Canby and found what she called cemetery blueprints in her garage. And she called the city to ask, do you want these? And the city called me and said, do you want these? And I said, what? I don't know what a cemetery blueprint is, but sure, I'll go get them. And it turns out it's a map. And it's a copy of a map. That's 1 page of 8 pages of plotter size. And it's dated. It was circa 1960 something, and there were some handwritten notes from 1974. What I got was a copy, not an original. But I called the city, the folks responsible for the cemetery, to make sure they had this. And indeed, they do have this. So I thought, well, what can we do to make this more available, or maybe to get it online? So up on the upper right is I took the information gathered by Rachel and her 2 young sons, and we put that in a spreadsheet. And if you can see, there are many items in red. Those are the data elements that were added or updated. And at the end, we updated 97% of the burial records that the city has for the historic section. In fairness, one thing that caused that number to be really high is we recorded birth dates. The city typically just has death dates or burial dates. And so we updated both birth and death dates. And if you look at the lower left of that spreadsheet, you can see there are names in red because, yes, we changed names. So if you look, here's that Heyman Lee person, Mr. Mayor. And in the city spreadsheet or the city list, the PDF list, it was listed as Herman Lee. And I thought, well, this is our first mayor. I think maybe we can correct his name in our burial records. But I searched through the records for anyone with the name Herman, and I compared it to the information that Rachel's and her sons gathered. And anytime there was someone with the name Heyman, it was changed to Herman in the database, in the city list. I found the same for many other, I guess what you call old-timey names, or there are many folks of German ancestry in the cemetery, and their names might be Adolf, A-D-O-L-F. And without exception, in the city list, they were all A-D-O-L-P-H. In some cases, the names are totally different. It's really interesting. And to be fair to the city, I met the person who was the city recorder at the time all of this was gathered. And she told me that, it was in many places, the city inherited this cemetery. And then over time, some things were in file folders and some things were in 3-ring binders. Some things were on microfiche. She did the best job she could. Some things were handwritten. Some of the information came from families who managed their own family plot in the early days. And sometimes all it said was grandma. So we have a very updated list now. And then at the bottom right, we have created an Excel version of the map from this list. And we're not done yet. So the last thing we need to do to this is we are indicating on this map where there are markers and where there are not. There are many burials with no markers. And it helps me for planning for the cleaning and the repair work if I know how many markers there are. I can't tell you how many markers are in the historic section. I don't know. So we're looking for volunteers to help us with that, just to walk through the cemetery, taking this, which is now a much smaller version of the map, and indicating which ones have markers. So for instance, in September, when we have another cleaning event in one of the sections, it would be good for me to know, are there 200 markers or 100 markers? I don't know. So anyway, that's a little bit of a side project that we've been working on. All right, so enough about Zion. I just want to talk briefly about the hidden value of the volunteerism within the Heritage and Landmark Commission. And one of the things is what the state calls in-kind hours. And this has to do with grants. We're very lucky that we've had really good experience with grant writing, mostly thanks to Carol Palmer, who many of you know. She's the czaress of grant writing. And she knows a lot of the ins and outs of what it takes to make a grant attractive to the state, because everybody's vying for the same money. And we have a really good track record of that. And one of the reasons we do is because the volunteers that help us with this grant project work come from many different backgrounds. And if we have someone who, for instance, is a certified project manager and they're project managing this grant work, that in-kind hours is tracked at a rate of $150 an hour at a professional rate. Or if someone who has experience or education or training in history research, their time is also billed out. So we can really bump up our in-kind value on these grants, which reduces the amount that the city has to provide as kind of a match. Really reduces that dramatically, and it puts a perfume on our grants, if you will. We've done grant writing training within our organization. Again, Carol, thank you to Carol Palmer and others who teach other people in our organization how to write a grant. And it's funny with Carol and I, just to share an aside, I think many of you know, Carol has a doctorate in public history, no less. I have an MBA, and Carol and I both had long executive level careers. But what we find is grant writing is hard. It's crazy hard. And it makes us stop and scratch our heads all the time. And I think the state isn't going to make it easy to get that money. You really have to work hard for it. And if people say it's not rocket science, I would say, oh yes, it is. It's really difficult. But the other thing is when somebody who's had as much experience in our city with it as Carol has is training you, it makes a huge difference. And our grants, like I said, they're well known by the state. I was actually in a virtual meeting with the state as they were reviewing cemetery grants, statewide cemetery grant applications. And you're allowed to listen in and hear their critique of them. And it helps you know, well, what are people spending this money on? And what can we spend our money on? And how can you make your grant more attractive? And I actually heard someone on the committee, the grant committee, say, oh, here's one from Canby. This is going to be a good grant. Then the other thing that comes with this grant writing training is the word gets out that we have these people that can do this grant writing. And I'm going to sound like I'm bragging on myself, but I'm not. But I've written numerous cemetery grants now, and another group in Canby, not in the city limits, but within Canby that has responsibility for historic cemetery, found out that I was doing that, and they asked me to write a grant for them, which I was very happy to do. So this really shares the love in a lot of ways that people don't see. And it's really one of the nice values of being part of this group. And of course, camaraderie, we're all in it because we all have a shared desire to make sure we preserve and protect what matters most in this community. And it also gives you a real sense of belonging. So this volunteerism is very impactful for the people in this group. All right, so just to finish up, I guess my request of you is keep us in your heads and hearts. If you hear about something heritage related and you think we can help, let us know. Think something that's important that we should know about, let us know. Let us know what we can do because we're here to help. Be our cheerleaders. Certainly, Counselor Parker is a great cheerleader for us. And it's helpful to spread the word about what we're doing and how we're going about this. And then also, if you have any shameless ideas on how to recruit volunteers. We always need volunteers. And there are several commissions and boards right now within the city that are short membership, and it makes things a little difficult, especially this year. We get the word out with social media and with the Canby Herald, but right now, because we can't be out there talking to groups, it makes it a little difficult. So anything you can do to help us wrangle some people, that'd be great. All right, so I guess I would just close by, again, saying thank you for your time. Thank you certainly for what you do for our town. It's much appreciated. And to just stop here and ask if you have any requests for me or any questions.
Counselor Spoon.
Yes.
Judy, thank you so much. This is incredible. It's you guys are a model commission committee for the city. What you do is pretty amazing. And this really helps us in the community understand how you help give Canby a sense of place. Particularly excited about your work to maybe get the depot on the historic register, the work on the fairgrounds, and the mapping project at Zion. All so cool. And we've enjoyed going around and looking at the historical headstones, the markers, the grave markers after the cleaning, and I know that work is good. So I just wanted to tell you, I think this is fantastic. It certainly will continue to be your cheerleader. The work you guys do is great, and you can mark me down to help out with the windshield survey. You said you were looking for volunteers. Just shoot me an email. My husband or one of my kids and I would love to go drive by some addresses, but I just really wanted to thank you. Your work's remarkable. And, everyone loves this town, and you help us build that sense of place that we're always trying to figure out how to find. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It's relatively easy to do things from the heart. So thank you very much for your kind words and for your volunteerism.
Anybody else have a specific question for Judy? Seeing none. Okay. Thank you very much for your time and all of your hard work. And the presentation was wonderful. Judy, thank you for your time tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Bye.
Okay. Melissa, did you send me the public hearing wording? I didn't see it.
No. Grab that for you.
I'm
We'll
looking.
get that for you right now, Council President.
Yeah, I don't have the wording I need for the public hearing, Melissa.
I'm grabbing it for you. It'll just take a few minutes. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have the executive session stuff for later, but I need that. Well, while we're getting that language, let's just move on to the consent agenda, and then we'll back up to the public hearing.
I move to, sorry, I have the wording right here. It's the wrong one. I move to approve the consent agenda that includes the minutes of the April 21st, 2021 City Council work session and City Council regular meeting.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Barwig, second by Councilor Spoon to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the April 21st, 2021 City Council work session and City Council regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes 5-0. Waiting for my email.
Council President Hensley, it's going to be just a few more moments. Melissa's working to get that sent to you, but I would suggest maybe at least going to 6A and see. We'll have that for you by the time we get through that item.
That's kind of what I was thinking. So let's just move on into resolution and ordinances. The first one is consideration of a resolution number 1348, a resolution adopting intergovernmental agreement with Canby Urban Renewal Agency regarding the transfer of tax increment revenues and proceeds to the city of Canby for the purpose of paying obligation bond financing. Scott?
Yes. Thank you, Council President Hensley and members of the City Council. This is an accompanying action for the City Council to take that we're recommending. That relates to an item that you, as the Urban Renewal Agency Commission earlier approved. And this is related to the refinancing of our debt for the Urban Renewal Agency, saving, because of much lower interest rates that are available to us, saving approximately $5.8 million in costs to the Urban Renewal Agency for its debt. And we've discussed this with you as the Urban Renewal Agency in your capacity as the Urban Renewal Agency Commission a couple of times at work sessions, and this was the chosen option that you supported, and thus we've brought that back to you for action. So I'm going to turn it over at this point to Julie Blum, Finance Director, to give you a bit more information on that and ask for your support of this.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. So As I said earlier in the urban renewal meeting, this is the resolution and accompanying intergovernmental agreement with the urban renewal district to refinance urban renewal debt. Urban renewal agency is not able to obtain debt in their own right, so the city obtains the debt on their own full faith and credit, and then the urban renewal district does this intergovernmental agreement to guarantee that they will pay the debt service on those loans. So that is what this resolution in IGA are for, is to quantify that.
Okay. Councilor Varwig.
Yes, Council President Hensley, I move to adopt Resolution 1348, a resolution of the City of Canby, Clackamas County, Oregon, authorizing the issuance and sale of full faith and credit refunding obligations, Series 2021, to refund certain outstanding obligations of the city, designating an authorized representative, underwriter, and special counsel, authorizing appointment of a paying agent, registrar, escrow agent, municipal advisor, and verification agent, and authorizing execution and delivery of a financing agreement, escrow deposit agreement, and purchase agreement, and related matters.
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna get that wordy thing out here.
You don't just remember it.
No, I will scroll. It has been moved by Councilor Varwig and seconded by Councilor Spoon. Oh, come on. Here we go. Oh, I got too far ahead. I apologize. I'm still waiting for an email from Melissa too, so. Technology issues abound. Okay. Oh, for the love of Pete. I got overzealous in my scrolling. I apologize. Well,
I think you're looking for page 54.
Yep, and I was arriving there just as you said that. We must be on the same wavelength. Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Varwig, seconded by Councilor Spoon to approve resolution number 1348, a resolution of the City of Canby, Clackamas County, Oregon, authorizing the issuance and sale of full faith and credit refunding obligations, Series 2021, to refund certain outstanding obligations of the city, designating an authorized representative, underwriter, and special counsel, authorizing appointment of a paying agent, registrar, escrow agent, municipal advisor, and verification agent, and authorizing execution and delivery of financing agreement, escrow deposit agreement, and purchase agreement, and related matters. All those in favor? Sorry, is there any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 5-0.
Thank you. I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Thanks, Julie. Okay, I hear my phone going off. That's good. Okay. We are going to back up now on the agenda to the public hearing because we do have the applicant online and I want to be able to let her go. So we have a public hearing on a noise variance request from the Wild Hair Saloon located at 1190 Southwest 1st Avenue. The variance is for Thursday through Saturday, June through September 2021. It's being requested to allow live music that will be performed outside between the hours of 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Thursdays and 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. Okay. Oh, wow, that's a lovely picture, Melissa. Matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please fill out a yellow public testimony card. Well, I guess text Melissa and give it to the city recorder at the appropriate time. Please step forward to the microphone, state your name and intent and the matter. Those people who are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please indicate your desire to speak by raising your hand at this time. Is there anyone in the chambers, Melissa?
There is not anyone in the chambers.
Okay. I believe we have Joan in the participants, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All questions must be directed through the mayor, or in this case, the council president. Any evidence, or for longer presentations, proponents may buy time from one another. In doing so, the either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who is representing the entire group. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to a hearing body during the staff report. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. Staff report, questions, if any, by a hearing body or staff. Open public hearing for testimony. Proponents will have not more than 5 minutes. Opponents also not more than 5 minutes. Close the public hearing. Questions, if any, by the hearing body. Discussion by the hearing body. Decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure of the hearing? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. And we've got staff report.
Thank you, Council President Hensley. Very briefly, I think you covered some of this already. The city received a noise ordinance variance for the Wild Hair Saloon and Cafe for Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays in June, July, August, and September of this year, from 7 to 10 p.m. on Thursdays and from 8 to 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. The noise variance is related to amplified music outdoors. I understand that previous noise variances have been granted for similar types of events for this business in the past. You're required to hold the public hearing as you're doing. And I know that the applicant is on the line. And if you have any questions of the applicant, I think she would be prepared to answer those. I don't know that she specifically wanted to speak unless any questions were asked of her. So I don't know that there's anything to add there, but just would note that. So staff has reviewed this application and does recommend your approval. Of course, you can choose to either approve that or deny the request. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have of staff.
Okay. Well, as you noted, we have approved noise variances for this establishment multiple times, as Hairfest used to be held not at Pat's Acres, and we haven't had any complaints that I recall. Does anyone have any questions for staff or for Joan? Okay. Well, with that, are there any proponents that wish to speak?
There are not.
Any opponents that wish to speak?
There are not.
I will close the public hearing. All right. Does anybody in the hearing body, which would be us, does anybody have any other questions? Councilor Barwig, I thought I saw you raise your hand.
I believe we need to make a motion to approve this, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd like to make the motion.
I believe that comes later in the agenda, does it not?
It's at this time.
It's at this time. So I'll make a motion to approve the noise variance request from the Wild Hair Saloon located at 1190 Southwest First Avenue, the variance for Thursday through Saturday, June to September 2021.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Councilor Barwig and seconded by Councilor Spoon to approve the noise variance request from the Wild Hair Saloon located at 1190 Southwest First Avenue. The variance is for Thursday through Saturday, June through September 2021. All those in favor? Okay, passes 5-0. Looking forward to seeing you this summer, Joan. All right, skipping on down again. Now we're back into resolutions and ordinances for item B, to consider ordinance number 1554, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and the city administrator to execute a contract with First Transit. This is a second reading. Is there any more you have to offer, Scott, or does anybody have questions of staff?
We have no new or additional information from the first reading, so that it remains the same.
Okay. Any additional questions from the council for staff?
No, but I'm happy to make a motion.
Okay.
I move to pass ordinance number 1554, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with First Transit Incorporated of Cincinnati, Ohio, for providing transit operations for Canby Area Transit, known as CAT. It says to a second reading on May 19th, but that's today, so I don't have to say that part, right?
No.
Okay. I was like, oh, yeah. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. It has been moved by Councillor Spoon, seconded by Councillor Varwig to adopt ordinance 1554, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with First Transit Incorporated of Cincinnati, Ohio, for providing transit operations for Canby Area Transit. Second reading, so roll call vote.
Councillor Baines,
Aye.
Council President Hensley,
Aye.
Councillor Spoon,
Aye.
Councillor Barwick,
Aye.
Councillor Parker.
Aye.
All right, it passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is ordinance number 1555, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an employment contract between the city of Canby and Chief George Tro. Second reading. Any more to offer, Scott?
No, Council President, no new information. Recommend second reading.
Okay, any questions for Scott? Councilor Varwick.
Sorry, I was just going to make the motion. I'll wait for any questions.
Go ahead and
All
make the motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 1555, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an employment contract between the city of Canby and Chief George Tro.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Varwick, second by Councilor Bangs, to authorize the city administrator to enter into an employment contract between City of Canby and Chief George Tro. Second reading, roll call vote.
Councillor Baines,
Aye.
Council President Hensley,
Aye.
Councillor Parker,
Aye.
Councillor Spoon,
Aye.
Councillor Barwick,
Aye.
Okay, that passes 5-0. Moving to consider second reading on ordinance number 1552, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into a contract with Herd Farms for wastewater sewage sludge removal and repealing ordinance 1527. Scott, anything new?
Again, no new information on this one, and staff recommends approval of second reading.
Any questions for Scott?
Nope, I'm happy to make a motion. I move to adopt ordinance number 1552, an ordinance authorizing the city of Canby to enter into a contract with Herd Farms for wastewater sewage sludge removal. That is a tongue twister.
It is. I had the same problem. And repealing.
Oh, and it does not say that in the proposed motion, but hold on. And repealing
1527.
1527, ordinance 1527. Thank you.
Thank you. And a second from, I see Sean Barwick. Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Spoon, second by Councillor Barwick to adopt ordinance number 1552, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to enter into a contract with Herd Farms for wastewater sewage sludge removal and repealing ordinance number 1527. Roll call vote.
Councillor Baines,
He's an aye.
Council President.
Aye. Sorry, I was on the wrong page. Aye.
It's okay. I'm also an aye.
Councillor Parker,
Parker, aye.
Councillor Spoon,
Aye.
Councillor Barwick.
Aye.
That passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is ordinance number 1553, an ordinance approving two intergovernmental agreements, IGAs, between Clackamas County and the city of Canby, permitting authority and maintenance responsibility for portions of North Locust Street, North Maple Street, North Redwood Street, and South Redwood Street, both in and out of the city limits. Second reading. Any questions for Scott or any more information from Scott?
Council President Hensley, I don't have any new information for you or no different information related to the ordinance. However, I did want to make one quick note to the council just related to this subject of the transfer of these county roads to the city, and that is This, to be clear, this ordinance is for approval of 2 intergovernmental agreements between Canby and Clackamas County. These IGAs are to permit the maintenance responsibilities, and also this basically allows the county to transfer the funds as has been discussed to the city. What I wanted to note to you was there will be some future follow-up actions related to the actual transfer of ownership of the property. So this is kind of a step 1, and there will be additional steps related to some follow-up actions, but this gets the money transferred by the fiscal year that we're in, and this kind of completes that first needed step. So just a clarification on some process. You'll hear more about this at future meetings.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions for Scott? Then I will take a motion.
I move to pass ordinance 1553, an ordinance approving 2 intergovernmental agreements between Clackamas County and the City of Canby, permitting authority and maintenance responsibility for portions of North Locust Street, North Maple Street, North Redwood Street, and South Redwood Street, both in and out of Canby city limits.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved by Councillor Varwig, seconded by Councillor Spoon, to pass and adopt ordinance number 1553, an ordinance approving 2 intergovernmental agreements between Clackamas County and the City of Canby, permitting authority and maintenance responsibility for portions of North Locust Street, North Maple Street, North Redwood Street, and South Redwood Street, both in and out of the city limits of Canby. Second reading, roll call vote.
Councillor Bailey.
Aye.
Council President Hensley.
Aye.
Councillor Parker. Councillor Parker.
You're muted.
He's
Parker,
muted, he's nodding.
Parker votes aye.
Councillor Spoon.
Aye.
Councillor Varley.
Aye.
That passes 5-0. Thank you. We're moving on to ordinance number 1556. Is a first reading on an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into a collective bargaining agreement between the City of Canby and Local 350-6 AFSCME Council 75 AFL-CIO. Scott and Joe.
Yes, I would like to ask Joe Lindsay, City Attorney, to give the staff report on this item.
Okay, so it's with pleasure and that I bring this to you. It's asking for a 4-year extended contract with AFSCME. They are the collective bargaining agreement for a good portion of our workforce, about 49 members. And the current collective bargaining agreement was set to expire June 30th of this year. And so we, as part of our negotiating, so one of the sides, and actually both of the sides, basically demanded to bargain. So we opened up bargaining, and we had some action items. And in a brief staff report, I put those, try to be brief and bullet point those changes. We were able to meet on several occasions in the spring. And they had some asks, and we had some asks, and we did some good compromising. And the parties actually got along. And I think the message was loud and clear that as an employer, the city really appreciates its employees. And so with that, we agreed on some of the changes were a new cost of living index that had the old index that we used had actually just gone out of commission entirely. And so we had kicked over an extended year with just a set number, but we wanted to have the cost of living attached to actual cost of living changes. So we did that, but we, in kind of an abundance of caution, we also agreed upon both the floor and the ceiling so that if there was catastrophic inflation or deflation, that each side would only suffer so much loss. So we went from a floor of 2% and a ceiling of 4% so that we can have some assurances about how to budget for the future, because in Oregon, we always have to come up with our balanced budgets. Gladly, we were able to come to the recognition of Martin Luther King Day as a holiday for our collective bargaining unit. And I should say the police have already had this in their contract. So this was a holdout. And one of the reasons for the holdout historically was just because we also had a personal holiday where people could recognize this on their personal holiday. But this is actually, I think, just kind of a long time coming in a necessary and good change. So we're happy to present that to you. We've allowed for a little bit more vacation accrual. We've allowed for a little bit more of selling back of when people earn comp time in lieu of earning overtime, they can actually sell back a little bit more of it every year. They accrue, their brackets for accruing vacation have been enhanced a little bit. And then we, in the spirit of retention, as well as recruitment, we wanted to give a longevity pay that when people are 10 years here or 20 years here, we recognize them not only with kind of celebration, but also with a little bit of compensation. And so all of those changes, and then we put in some gender neutral language just so we're kind of staying up on best practices that way. And we have agreed that we're going to create a telework policy coming out of COVID. That seems to be kind of an essential path in which organizations are at least recognizing that not all work has to be done on site. And so we're going to have a telework policy within the first year, and then we're going to do a comp study on at least one position, and we're going to try to do more. And with that, all of those changes and agreed upon concessions between the two parties, the union went back to their membership, and they've already signed off and voted and ratified this. So with your ratification after second reading, this will become law, and we'll have a nice 4-year agreement that everybody walks away feeling really good about. So it is my recommendation that you please ratify this yourself, and so we can get everybody on the same.
Thank you, Joe. We did talk about this at length in executive session and past sessions. So does anybody have any other questions for Joe at this point? Seeing no hands up and seeing heads shaking no, I'll accept a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 1556, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into a collective bargaining agreement between the city of Canby and local 350-6 AFSCME, Council 75 AFL-CIO, to come up for a second reading on June 2nd, 2021.
Second.
It's been moved by Councillor Varwig and seconded by Councillor Spoon to approve ordinance number 1556, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into a collective bargaining agreement between the city of Canby, Oregon and local 350-6 AFSCME Council 75 at AFL-CIO to come up for a second reading June 2nd. Is that what you said? All those in favor? That passes 5-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of ordinance number 1557, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to purchase one transit van for Canby Area Transit from Shepke Northwest Sales of Portland, Oregon. First reading. Scott?
Council President Hensley and Council, I'd like to ask for Todd Wood, our transit director, to give you a brief staff report on this.
Okay, thank you, Todd.
You're welcome. I'll keep this fairly short. Back in September, when the CARES Act money was established, there was a pool for transit, and I applied and asked to buy a transit van as well as get some other monies. What this is it's a Ford Transit van. It's very similar to the vans you see that Amazon uses. It's the same style, except it's a little bit longer and a little bit taller. And the reason we want to purchase this is we do a lot of transport up to the hospital, and we need a lift. We have 3 buses right now that are lift equipped as opposed to ramp equipped, but they're getting old. And a lot of the transit providers have gone to this style of van. They're more fuel efficient, they're easier to maintain. They're a little bit thinner and a little bit shorter, so you can get them into places easier. And they're a little bit cheaper overall to operate. So this will be our first one. We're hoping that it works really well. And if it does, we may look at purchasing more in the future.
Okay, would this be used on a route, or is this intended to be used on the dial-a-ride?
It's dial-a-ride. Dial-a-ride specifically paratransit more than dial-a-ride itself. Specifically It's going to have an oversized lift so that we have a few folks that have oversized mobility devices or scooters and need a larger lift. So this will allow us to accommodate those. Without mobility devices, it can accommodate technically 9 passengers, but all those seats fold up and you can accommodate 3 mobility devices, as well as 2 oxygen containers at the same time.
Excellent. Okay. Any questions for Todd or Scott? Councilor Barwick.
Thank you. The purchase price of $83,923, that includes, that's ready to go in service. Is that correct?
Ready to go in service, yes.
Okay. Logoed and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I will take a motion. Anyone? Councilor Spoon. You're muted. There you go.
I was trying to right hand and left hand. I look at the agenda on one and okay. I move to approve Ordinance 1557, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to purchase 1 vehicle for Canby area transit from Shakti Northwest Bus Sales of Oregon to come up for second reading on June 2nd, 2021. I think I need glasses.
And I see a second. Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Spoon, seconded by Councilor Barwick to approve ordinance number 1557, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to purchase 1 transit van for Canby area transit from Shepke Northwest Sales of Portland to come up for second reading on June 2nd. All those in favor? That passes 5-0. Moving on to mayor's business. Well, the mayor's not here, so there's no business. Councilor comments and liaison reports. I'm going to go in the order of what I see on my screen and start with Councilor Parker.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Spoon.
Nothing tonight.
Councilor Varwig.
It's a theme. Nothing tonight.
Councilor Bangs.
I am so sorry. I have something tonight. The library board met last night, and I was unable to attend because my computer glitched right at 5:30. Thankfully, Danny gave me a brief report, plus board members sent out the minutes already, which was both appreciated and impressive. So the board meeting included a bunch of discussion on the library board itself, its rules of governance, the role it plays for our city. Joe Lindsay was there to present, and he could probably do a better job presenting this report here. Joe explained to them the rules of procedure and so forth. Let's see, the board would like to resume monthly in-person meetings as soon as the city can allow that. Previously, the board had met monthly and then went to every other month with Zoom because of COVID. So they're excited to get back into in-person. Another topic is we have 2 vacancies on the board, and plus a student non-voting member, which will need replacement as soon as graduation comes. So I guess kind of 3. As of last night, there were no applicants for these 2 regular positions, but I believe that 1 actually did arrive today. And meanwhile, I think I do have a student recruited. The school librarian helped a great deal to do that. We're going to move forward with presenting that person, I believe, to the library board. And I just got an application today from Melissa. I had hoped at this time, or by this time, to bring an ordinance proposal to you to change the rules for the voting member of the library board from non-voting to voting. But I wanted to do it as a package deal with the History and Landmarks Commission, and I thought that was going to be up on the agenda. And I've been remiss in reaching out to Judy and putting it on the agenda, but I've been holding back on this because I want to do them both at the same time. But in the meantime, if any of you guys have concerns, at some point I will be asking you to change the city code and make that a voting member. They go to all the meetings anyway. The library board did note last night that if we did that, it would create an even number of board members. So they would like to either add 1, or it seems like you could also just reduce 1, which might be easier if no one fills out those applications. But I'm not sure exactly how to resolve that particular issue. So more on that later. The school board, of course, always meets. The school board remains focused on its three big issues right now. The superintendent search, the return to regular full-time school in the fall, and the construction bonds, which have already started and will be continuing and really ramping up this summer. And in addition, it was announced today, I think, maybe yesterday, that we will be doing an in-person graduation rather than a virtual type of thing like we did last year. It's either going to be 2 sessions or 1, depending on our risk levels. And if it's 2 sessions, it'll be at 6 and 8 p.m. And if it's the 1, it'll be at 7. Fireworks are almost always included at the high school graduation ceremony when they play the 1812 overture. So the community around the high school should be aware on Friday, June 11th, there'll be fireworks in the evening celebrating the graduation. So we're all looking forward to that, especially the Banks family, because we have our youngest graduating. The other exciting news is that the election was held yesterday for 4 school board positions. For almost the entire day, there was no update. It appears as though 2 incumbents, Tom Scott and Sarah Megenheimer, are going to be reelected. And then the other 2 incumbents probably are getting defeated by Sherry Smith and Shelley Vissers. And I say probably because the county has been oddly slow at counting ballots. I don't know any of what that's about, but that would be my prediction, that that's what's going to happen on the school board. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilor Banks. I have a question for you, actually. First note, I did talk with Sherry Hall last night, and I don't think they're slow in counting the ballots, but they are having issues with getting it posted up to the website. So that's why we're kind of lagging in getting our reporting. But my question for you is, if the risk level changes and they're going to reconfigure one graduation ceremony or 2, will they increase the number of tickets per family? I've heard that's only 2 tickets per family at this point.
So that's a great question. Logic would indicate that if they go the 2 ceremonies, they could have twice as many visitors because they have half as many, or at least a third as like you could have more, right? And I don't think we know the answer yet. I was just talking today about the planner, and there's still a lot of uncertainty about that, which is agonizing for the people that put the thing on.
Sure. And
for the kids and families to not have this information. The good news is our case numbers seem to be going down, and so it's encouraging in terms of having a full. But I believe that we think it's going to be 1 session and not 2, and therefore just 2 tickets per graduate.
Wow.
I don't mean to interrupt or cut in line. I just touching on the elections. I did email the elections office earlier, and they did send me a link to an updated count. And so, as Council President Hensley mentioned, there's an issue with the website, I believe. But if you email the elections office, elections@clackamas County, I believe they will send you a link to the current numbers. So, anyways,
yeah,
if that helps or not, I don't know.
They did have a website updated after our first meetings this evening started, because I've been looking, because I've been planning on telling you. But I do believe it'll be Sherry Smith and Shelley Vissers, because the percentages difference has remained roughly similar, even though they added more vote totals. So the trend does not appear to be indicating that there's going to be a change in what's the current outcome.
It's a wide margin for them to catch up. So thank you, Councilor Banks. Councilor Spoon.
Thank you. This might be a question for staff, but it's related to Councilor Banks's report. We have ongoing conversations about the fireworks with the people that live in that area. And I believe that our ordinance does not give a variance for graduation. It's specifically for sporting events. Will the school board be asking for a variance this time so that neighbors will be notified in the proper fashion? Because that was our ask of them last year, is not that we have a senior graduating. I'm very excited about graduation, but just that they follow the proper channels moving forward. And I thought they had agreed to do that, but I haven't seen a variance come through for graduation.
Yeah, I haven't either. And that was
I am unaware of any ask for any variance either. And you're accurate in that it's the football games or what are and sporting events that are in the exception in the
Do they have time to ask for a variance? Because I think graduation will be shortly after our next meeting, but I would really appreciate if they followed the process given the challenges we faced with the neighbors and their frustration with the process.
We will reach out to them, and then I might have to, per sometimes usual, do a one-way message to the council as kind of an update under the, my privilege with being your attorney. And so I can at least inform you that way, and then if you guys need to discuss it on June 2nd. When is graduation?
I believe it's June 8th or 9th. Chris, do you remember?
June 11th.
June 11th, yeah.
Okay.
So it would have to be in second agenda.
Yeah, we'll definitely reach out to them, and I'll keep you informed, and then we'll make sure and revisit that on June 2nd.
Yeah, from my perspective, we went through this last year. We asked that they follow the process. We didn't cite them for the violation, but it's really important to me that they go through the appropriate channels and that they be handled the same way as everyone else. So,
okay.
I was not aware that it was specific to athletics, and I did just read it this year, but I do forget things. However, we didn't have a graduation or fireworks last year.
There were fireworks last year. They did them further, like virtual.
Oh, you're right. They did do a fireworks show.
They did do them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. For my report, I want to thank Clint Coleman. He has served as chair of the Traffic Safety Commission for a number of years now, since Bob Backstrom stepped away from that role. He's still going to be on the Traffic Safety Commission, but he has decided to step away from the role as chair. So they held elections at the last meeting. And so Bob Canberra, who was serving as secretary, is now chair. Donna Balcar will retain her role as vice chair, and then Christian Wadsworth will take over the role for secretary in that commission. They're still working on Grant Street between 2nd and 3rd, the enterprise rental area, and 10th and Birch is still being looked at as well. And it was brought up at the last meeting, and so I wanted to update you on South Fir and 13th. They are working on a remedy there. They're going to be putting in a left turn lane so that they can alleviate some traffic issues at that intersection. That's all I have for liaison reports, but I did want to say that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And the intention is to raise awareness and educate about mental illnesses, such as anxiety and depression and bipolar and schizophrenic disorders, and the realities of living with these conditions and their resources and strategies for attaining mental wellness. So I just kind of wanted to remind everybody about our efforts with the Canby Suicide Prevention Task Force. And if you want more information about that, you can find it at thecanbycenter.org under programs. Okay, moving on to the agenda, city administrator, business and staff reports. We have the bi-monthly reports in our packets. Scott, do you have a report for us?
I do have a few brief items. The first you mentioned, just note to council that included in your packet is the written bi-monthly reports that you received from the departments, chock full of information. Should you ever have questions about that, please do let me know. Second is, you may recall that there were some work sessions held recently related to planning and development, and specifically that there were some new legislation that is impacting our planning and development efforts. One of those is House Bill 2002-003, and that is the bill that will require us as a city to complete a housing needs analysis by December 31st of 2022. So a little over a year and a half away. And it's a pretty big lift. And so the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development, usually referred to as DLCD, has let us know and other cities that they are working to make available assistance to help complete this process. So it's not certain yet, but they are providing cities with the opportunity right now to put in a request for interest And staff would need to submit that by May 31st. And what that would be is simply, yes, we would like to be included in this list of potentially funded cities to receive from DLCD assistance to complete this process. They requested that we inform our city councils or our elected boards that we're putting in the request for interest, and that we would then bring back to you in June a formal application to this process when we have additional information. There's really is no particular action for you on this. I'm just simply informing you that unless you have any issues with this or concerns, we're going to submit the request for interest to the DLCD that allows us then to apply for funding and consulting assistance on this housing needs analysis that we'll have to do. And we'll bring back a formal action to you. So unless you have any questions or concerns, and we'll have a further conversation when we bring back formal action.
Okay. Any questions for Scott? All right. Melissa, this is a second opportunity for citizen input. Is there anybody in the queue for second opportunity?
There's not.
Okay. Action review, please.
You approved the consent agenda, approved the noise variance request for the Wild Terrace Saloon, approved resolution 1348, adopted ordinance numbers 1554, 1555, 1552, and 1553, and passed ordinance numbers 1556 and 1557 to second readings on June 2nd, 2021.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. With that, we do have an executive session after this. It was noticed for 8:30, which we are past that time. So I will give us 5 minutes for us to get over to the other link. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn into executive session.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Barwick, seconded by Councilor Spoon. Non-debatable motion. All those in favor? All right, we'll see you on the other link. Good night, Canby.